All right, we need to get started. So, yeah, the stage is yours.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Amelia Rozeboom, but most people know me by Mia, and this is my senior portfolio. So I wanted to introduce a little bit about me. A lot of people know me as the artistic kid who has a bunch of reptiles. I bring my lizard here, Nellie, to the lab a few times. This necklace is actually her footprint. I love her a lot. You also probably know that I'm really into ceramics. I actually am in Ceramics 3, which is the highest level ceramics you can take, and I work in the ceramics room. So that is something I'm very, very passionate about. And then maybe a little bit lesser known fact about me is that my mother and I, we are beekeepers. We have 2 hives in our backyard, and some of my favorite times of the year is when we get to harvest honey, and then I get to sell the honey. It's just very exciting for me. So to me, sorry. My major is creative technologies, and I'm an art minor. And to me, these things are very similar. It's hard for me to differentiate creative technologies and art like inside myself and like when I came into the program because it's just creative expression. Um, and to use art and creative technologies, it's just one and the same. You're just using technology to make the art with my project that we will see later on. So speaking of that, my capstone or my portfolio is about art, and my theme is using traditional and digital art techniques to fabricate functionally decorative wearables and sculptures. You might be asking yourself, what is a functionally decorative item? That can be very ambiguous, but to me, it's something that is decorative, like maybe a fancy table or a clock, as we just saw in Jacob's presentation, um, that is beautiful to look at, but it also has a function. This also goes with wearables for me, so earrings or anything that you would wear that you are using to show off your art, anything that doesn't hang on a wall. And then sculptures is like a vase or uh, just any ceramic item is usually like a decorative item that you use. Even plates, you eat off ceramic plates that are beautiful like Christmas time or Easter. So this is my first project for my capstone. I use acrylic box earrings that I made in CNC robotics. These earrings were a very important project to me as it was the first time I really got to branch out and make multiple items all by myself and have them to sell. So the purpose of these earrings is to raise money for a fox rescue called Clever Creatures Fox Sanctuary. I work with this rescue very closely. I'm actually friends with the owner of it and my other friend who does their sales, and so I make many things for them. And this is the first time that I made something all by myself. I donated 50% of the proceeds from these fox earrings to the rescue, and I sold about 5 pairs the first time selling them, so that was $50 to the fox rescue. So another thing that I'm very passionate about is making enamel pins. It's one of my favorite art styles, and I can produce an enamel pin design in about an hour each. These are all designs that I've created. These 2 on the ends are for my business called Rozeboom Merchandise. I co-own it with my friend Lexi Lamador, so we just combined our last names. And then this middle one is for the same fox rescue, Clever Creatures. I wanted to talk a little bit about how I design enamel pins because it's something that is it's just different than a traditional art medium because there's a lot of constraints involved. For the enamel pins, you have to have cells for each color in a limited palette because when they're manufacturing these, they literally dab the paint into each cell. And so you must make sure that if you want your color separated, it has a wall. And that can really muddy a design if you're not intentional about your walls. And so these are 2 designs that aren't released yet. So you guys are actually some of the first people seeing these. These are both for the Clever Creatures company. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of these enamel pins. This is Roger Merchandise's Etsy page. We have 457 sales. And I actually went through today and looked at all of our sales. And I was trying to find things that we had sold that weren't enamel pins, just to like make sure I had my numbers right. And I only found one thing as I scrolled through about 5 pages. So most of these 457 sales are enamel pins, which range from about like $10 to $25, depending on the size and complexity of the piece. And then as well as Clever Creatures, which I do a bit of work for hire for. So I just take upfront pay for the payment for the design, and then they get to use it for the enamel pins and T-shirts and other merchandise. So we use the designs to make fundraising and spread the word, basically. So here's a coloring contest that we do a lot with one of my designs that has not been released. So people will color it, and then they will send us their designs, and then we'll pick one, and they get their pin. So it's just like to raise engagement on the pages. Okay. So moving on to sculptures. This is one of my favorite projects ever, the Arduino Dragon. For my ceramics 1 class, this is actually the final project for my third ceramics class, I really wanted to make a dragon because that's always been my favorite thing to draw. Since I was in middle school, I was drawing dragons on every sheet of notes that I have ever written. So I wanted to engage with my new art medium and do the thing that I know how to do best, which is dragons. This dragon is based off of greyhounds, which I've owned many times. We actually had one pass away recently, so it's a little bit deeper now. And I took this dragon and I wanted to integrate it into our physical computing class by adding an Arduino battery pack, and it has LEDs in the neck, sound sensor. So when you switch the modes on the IR reader inside of the Dragon, there's one mode that it can sense sound, and it changes the colors depending on music or just range of sound. It has, I think it had like 9 different modes of colors, and I custom made them all to fit the purpose of this dragon, which was to be an incense holder. I really wanted to have the dragon seem like it could breathe fire, so the smoke would come up and billow around the dragon. I actually put a longer GIF on there. I don't know why it's not loaded up, but you can imagine the smoke billowing up, and it catches the light as it goes up on the different um, settings of the lights. This dragon also won honorable mention in the 2022 Students Honor Show. Actually, just won another honorable mention with another dragon in the honor show, so it's just something I enjoy mentioning. So here he is in all his glory on his pedestal. Okay, moving on to my capstone, which is the 3D Potter, innovating sculpture with ceramic 3D printing. Ceramic 3D printing is an interesting process. It actually isn't that new, surprisingly, but for small ceramic 3D printers, it's more of a new, innovative art technique. For my project, I really wanted to focus on the artistic uses of these printers. You see people print houses with cement. It's the same type of machine, but I just wanted to focus on the art and using it as an expressive form. So this is our 3D Potter. He is the 3D Potter 9, which is actually an older version now. It's the same as a 3D printer. It takes code and prints in layers. It's just like printing with toothpaste instead of plastic, which has its own challenges. So I had 3 projects with my capstone. I'm going to go into a little bit of depth on these, but my first project was this turtle. My second project were these cupcakes, and then my last project was making a cute little meal out of the clay. So for my first project, we have this turtle. You might be thinking, that's a pretty ugly sculpture, and I would agree, but the purpose of this turtle was to really experiment with the 3D Potter and see what it could do with its natural settings and nibs that came with the factory. It's really pushed the limits of the 3D Potter and what I could do with it. So here it is next to a WD-40 can. That's my scale. I figure everybody here knows how tall a WD-40 can is. Um, and this is my 3D render of the turtle just to see what it was supposed to look like. And you can tell this is the top half. I printed it in two halves because the 3D plotter likes to, it's Wi-Fi connected. So if I print for too long, the Wi-Fi says, "Oh, I'm done, bye," and it stops and deletes the rest of the print. So I had to print it in two sections and then put it together. So you see the strands at the top of that. It's because the 3D plotter, until recently, I didn't know that it does not do retraction, and so it would string between them, and it was like knocking them down. I was trying to like push them back up as it was knocking everything over, but it was really an experiment for me, and I was impressed with the results. Um, okay, after I did the turtle, I said it's time to innovate, and I looked around. I scoured the internet for people who have changed the nibs on the 3D printers. And surprisingly, I did not find anybody who did that. It's strange to me, but it's okay. So I 3D modeled the nib that came with the factory, and then I got inspired from icing nibs because my mother was a baker as a child, and I always would play with them. And so I took icing nibs and I made these custom design nibs and printed them on the plastic 3D printer. Our machine, you can actually see with the nozzle, it's this nozzle, it's easy to change out with just a little bit of a screw. You pull it out, it actually pushes it out because of the pressure, and then you can change the nozzles very quickly between prints or even during prints. I didn't really try that because of the nature of what I was printing, but it is possible. And to make these realistic cupcake forms, I used a mixture of terracotta and stoneware to give it that like mixed ice cream look. I really adore it. And so here's all my trials and tribulations of making the cupcakes. And this is also a diff that's not working. I don't know. And here's a glazed version of the cupcake. I have the other ones. I need to get a better picture of them, but this is the best one that came out with the glossy finish. Okay. So for my final project is the meal. This is very, very exciting to me. For my final project, I wanted to mix the 3D printing and hand building because that's the form of ceramics that I'm most comfortable with to make something that expresses the artistic intent more. So just using it as a tool for my ceramics instead of using it as the ceramics. I think that makes sense. Um, so here we have it when it was still wet. The burger, it completely goes apart. So every single piece was printed individually and it can be taken apart and put back together. And then here are the fries. They're also all apart, so you can put them in and out of the basket as you please. And then my little cup with its straw, which also comes out. I printed each piece with a different nozzle, which is some of these, just to vary the textures of my pieces. And then I glazed them with underglaze, which is just like a matte acrylic paint type glaze, so it'll be cured to these colors. It'll be a little bit darker. They're not at the kiln yet, or I would have had photos. Yeah, here is my final project for the 3D plotter. Oh, and this is when I learned how to do infill, and then it started doing retraction. Magically, it wasn't magic, but it was. I clicked a setting that I didn't think would change retraction, and it said, "Oh, you want me to retract?" And I was, "Thank you." And retraction is just it pulls the clay up when it's moving, so it doesn't string everywhere. Okay, so where am I going next? I will be working as an artist at Van Gelder Incorporated, which is a foreign company. They do like custom mats and put logos in mats. So I will just be doing like the vector art to put on their water jet. So I think it's a perfect combination for me, merging CRT and the art that I have been doing all this time. Thank you.